All right, welcome everyone to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be taking a closer look, really a deep dive, into the life and career of Jessica Diane Aber.
Absolutely.
So for those who might not be familiar, Jessica Aber served as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. From 2021 until her, unfortunately, very untimely passing just last month in March of 2025.
Yeah, a huge loss for the legal community and beyond.
It really was. And you know, what's interesting is she accomplished so much in a relatively short amount of time. So we really want to unpack that, figure out what made her such a force, a trailblazer, as so many have described her.
Right, and for this deep dive, we're going to be drawing primarily from a recent episode of the podcast, Legacy of Justice, which was entirely dedicated to remembering her and her contributions.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job, really thoughtful and insightful. And for us, you know, our goal here is to go beyond just sort of the surface level facts and figures of her career. We want to understand the impact she had on the legal field and beyond, and maybe even extract some, I don't know, key takeaways or even lessons that we can apply to our own lives, whatever our field might be.
Definitely. I think there's a lot to learn from her story. And to kind of set the stage, where did Jessica Aber's journey begin? Like literally geographically, like where was she born?
Okay, so Jessica Diane Aber was born in Walnut Creek, California back in 1981.
Okay, California. Interesting. So not originally from Virginia then?
Nope, not at all. And one of the things that really stood out to me in the Legacy of Justice episode was, even when they talked about her early life, even as a child, there was this consistent mention of her having a very strong sense of justice and fairness.
It's interesting, right? It makes you wonder if that was something she was born with, like almost an innate quality.
Right? Like some people are just drawn to music or art. Maybe she was just wired for justice.
Yeah, almost like a moral compass pointing true north from day one.
I like that.
It's fascinating.
And I guess that makes the next part even more, I don't know, telling.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's next?
So for high school, she attended Monte Vista High School. And the podcast specifically mentioned, you know, beyond just being a very strong academic institution, they really emphasized how the school itself really focused on cultivating like integrity and leadership as core values.
So it wasn't just about, you know, getting good grades. It was about developing a certain character.
Yeah, exactly. And you can imagine for a young person who is already, you know, so inclined towards justice and fairness,
right,
to be in an environment where those values were constantly being reinforced.
It must have had a huge impact on her development.
Totally. It's like they nurtured those qualities that were already there.
It makes you wonder what those teachers were like.
I know.
What were they doing to create that kind of atmosphere?
That would be a whole other deep dive, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
But moving along. So after Monte Vista, she went on to the University of Richmond for her undergraduate degree, and no surprise, graduated with honors.
Okay, so the academic excellence continues.
Oh yeah, but it's in law school at William & Mary, where things start to get really interesting. I mean, this is where her focus really narrows in on criminal law.
Okay, so that's where it all clicked for her in terms of her legal path.
It seems that way. And the Legacy of Justice episode really highlighted just how active she was, even while in law school. Like, she wasn't just hitting the books. She was already out there, you know, doing internships with local prosecutors, participating in moot court competitions. She really immersed herself in the practical side of things.
So not just learning the theory, but actually like practicing the craft of law.
Exactly. And I think that really speaks to her, you know, proactive nature, her drive to really get her hands dirty, so to speak.
Yeah, she wasn't waiting around for things to happen. She was making them happen.
I love that.
So law school, William & Mary, criminal law, it all starts coming together.
Right. And from there, she lands her first job as a prosecutor. And guess where?
Let me guess. The Eastern District of Virginia.
Ding, ding, ding. You got it.
I figured. It's all coming full circle.
I know, right? It's like almost destined. And from what the podcast described, it sounds like she made a pretty immediate impact.
So how did they describe her early work as a prosecutor?
Well, they used words like, you know, dedicated and skilled, which I guess you would expect. But there was also this sense that she was, I don't know, immediately effective.
Like she just had a knack for it, you know? Some people, they just have that natural talent.
Right. And they also mentioned her commitment, like how seriously she took the work from day one. It wasn't just a job, it was, you know, a calling.
So not just clocking in and clocking out. She was all in.
100% all in. And it wasn't long before she was moving up the ranks.
So how did she climb the ladder in the Eastern District?
So in 2016, she was appointed Deputy Chief of the Criminal Division.
Deputy Chief, that's a pretty big deal.
It is. And she held that position for 5 years, all the way until 2021. And, thinking about it, that's actually a pretty significant amount of time to be in a leadership role like that, especially when you consider the types of cases she was overseeing.
So what kind of cases fell under her purview as Deputy Chief?
Well, the podcast mentioned white-collar crime, which, often involves things like financial fraud, embezzlement.
Oh, the sophisticated stuff.
Right, definitely not your typical street crime. And then, on top of that, she was also handling cases related to national security.
Whoa, that's high stakes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And, public corruption cases as well.
So really a wide range of incredibly complex and sensitive issues.
Exactly. And, to be in charge of a division like that, dealing with such a diverse and frankly challenging caseload, it really speaks to, I think, her expertise and her leadership abilities.
Absolutely. It's not a position you just stumble into. You have to earn that level of trust and responsibility.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about her legal skills, although those were obviously top-notch.
Yeah. What else made her stand out?
Well, throughout her time in the Eastern District, she really built a reputation for being, what they call a tireless advocate for justice. The podcast really emphasized her meticulous attention to detail, her unwavering commitment to the rule of law.
So she wasn't cutting corners. She was doing things by the book, but with a real passion for justice.
Absolutely. It was a combination of, brilliance and principle. And that, I think, is what ultimately led to her appointment as U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District in 2021.
So she basically reached the top of the ladder in that district.
Yeah, pretty much. And she was only 40 years old at the time, which, the podcast pointed out, made her one of the youngest U.S. attorneys in the entire country.
Wow, 40 years old. That's incredibly young for such a prestigious position. I mean, talk about a meteoric rise.
I know. And once she took on this new leadership role, she really hit the ground running. She had several key priorities that she focused on right away.
Okay, like what? What were her main areas of focus?
Well, the Legacy of Justice episode highlighted a few. First, she was really committed to combating violent crime within the district.
Makes sense. That's a pretty standard priority for any U.S. attorney.
It is, but they also mentioned her efforts to address the opioid addiction crisis.
Oh, yeah, that's a huge issue, not just in Virginia, but nationwide.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there was her focus on protecting civil rights.
So really tackling some of the most pressing issues facing the community.
And she didn't just talk about these issues. She actually achieved some significant successes, especially in prosecuting cybercrime.
Cybercrime, yeah, that's a growing problem these days.
It is. It's so complex and constantly evolving. And they also mentioned her successes in prosecuting human trafficking cases.
Oh, wow, that's such important work. Those crimes are so often hidden and so difficult to prosecute.
Exactly. And I think her success in those areas really speaks volumes about her ability to adapt to the changing landscape of criminal activity.
Right. She wasn't stuck in the past. She was forward thinking, always looking for new ways to address emerging threats.
And it wasn't just about going after the bad guys, so to speak.
Yeah.
One of the things that really stood out to me about Jessica Aber was her commitment to mentorship.
Oh yeah, the Legacy of Justice episode really emphasized that. They talked about how she actively supported young attorneys.
Especially women and minority lawyers, which is, so important for diversifying the legal field.
Absolutely. And they said that many of her mentees went on to become leaders themselves.
Which is amazing, right? It's like her legacy extends beyond her own accomplishments.
Like she was paying it forward,
Yeah.
Investing in the future of the legal profession.
And it's not just that she was, successful and a great mentor. There was also this real sense of, balance to her approach.
Balance. What do you mean by that?
Well, they described her as, tough, but also compassionate.
That's an interesting combination. Not always easy to pull off.
Right. And the podcast specifically mentioned how she was, fierce advocate for victims' rights.
Yeah, making sure their voices were heard.
Exactly. But at the same time, she also believed in, rehabilitation and the possibility of second chances.
So she wasn't just about punishment. She understood the complexity of the justice system.
Yeah, and she actually supported programs aimed at reducing recidivism, trying to help people get back on their feet.
That's pretty remarkable to hold both of those perspectives, the need for accountability, but also the hope for redemption.
It's a really nuanced perspective, and I think, sadly, one that's often missing in conversations about criminal justice.
And it's even more impressive given the environment she was working in, right? federal law enforcement can be pretty tough, pretty unforgiving.
It can be, but she somehow managed to navigate those complexities with, grace and integrity. And it's so incredibly sad that her time as U.S. attorney and her life were cut short so suddenly.
Yeah, as we mentioned at the beginning, her passing in March was a real shock to everyone. The Legacy of Justice episode touched on the fact that, the specific details surrounding her death have been kept private.
Which is totally understandable. The family deserves their privacy during such a difficult time.
Absolutely. But even without knowing the details, the outpouring of grief from, colleagues, friends, the entire community, it really speaks volumes about the kind of impact she had on people.
It really does. And the way she was described, as a force of nature, a true champion of justice, those aren't just empty words. They reflect a life lived with purpose and integrity.
Yeah, and even Attorney General Merrick Garland released a statement calling her, quote, a model public servant whose dedication to the rule of law was unmatched.
Powerful words. Coming from the Attorney General, that's not just a casual compliment.
Right. That's a testament to her character and her legacy.
And, it's clear that her work in the Eastern District continues to inspire people.
Yeah, the podcast mentioned how her approach to cases, her leadership style, it's still shaping the way things are done there.
Right. And then there's the Diane Aber Foundation.
Oh, right, the foundation. What's the foundation's mission?
So the foundation was established specifically to support aspiring attorneys from underrepresented backgrounds.
Oh, that's so fitting, given her own commitment to mentorship and diversity.
Exactly. It's like a continuation of her work, ensuring that the legal field becomes more inclusive and accessible to everyone.
It's a beautiful way to honor her memory and continue her legacy.
It really is. So, reflecting on everything we've discussed, from her childhood in California to her incredible rise in the Eastern District, what stands out to you the most about Jessica Aber's story?
I think what's remarkable is just how consistent she was throughout her life and career. There's this unwavering dedication to excellence, this constant striving for improvement. Like, she wasn't just brilliant, she was always working to be better.
She was never complacent.
Exactly, and she combined that, intellectual rigor with a deep understanding of the human element in the justice system.
Right, like she never lost sight of the people at the heart of these cases.
Absolutely. She was tough when she needed to be, but she never forgot the importance of compassion and empathy.
And of course, there's her legacy of mentorship, her commitment to nurturing the next generation of legal minds.
It's really inspiring, isn't it? It shows that you can achieve incredible things, make a real difference without sacrificing your values or your humanity.
And it makes me think, what can each of us take away from Jessica Aber's story? How can we apply her example to our own lives, our own work, whatever our field might be?
It's a great question. I mean, for me, it's a reminder that, even within a system as large and complex as the federal government, one person can still make a difference.
Especially when they're driven by a strong sense of purpose and a genuine desire to serve others.
Exactly. And I think it also challenges us to think about how we can be better mentors, how we can support those around us and help them reach their full potential.
Absolutely. So for our listeners, as you reflect on Jessica Aber's life and career and her unwavering commitment to justice, think about what resonates most with you. What aspects of her story inspire you? What questions does it raise for you in terms of your own path, your own contributions? Because ultimately, I think Jessica Aber's story reminds us that we all have the potential to leave a positive mark on the world, no matter how big or small.
It's a legacy worth striving for.
It really is.
And I think even though she's gone, her legacy will continue to inspire people for years to come.
No doubt about it. All right, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. We'll be back next week with another fascinating story. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.